Well, it's all but official. The Cleveland Browns will be heading to Brook Park to play their games in the future with the state budget getting approved on Monday. We'll talk about that. Also, the Browns' outlook for the upcoming season, the division rival making moves. We got all kinds of stuff on the docket for you today. Very much looking forward to getting into it all. It's Anthony Moeglin, Spencer German with you here with the Cleveland Browns on SI, and very much in the dog days of summer, if you will. But still plenty to talk about when it comes to football and Megs. We're gonna certainly do our best. I do think it's, hey, listen, we're doing a whole show. We mapped out a whole show today, and there's no mention, at least of this juncture. Maybe they'll come up at some point, but there's no mention of the quarterbacks. We found a way to talk non-quarterbacks, and that's I think a win.
Intentional, right? It's tough. July 4th weekend, and we finally dropped the quarterback topic. We may be the first show. I think we're the first show in all of Cleveland media to drop the quarterbacks for at least one show. I'm pretty proud of us, dude.
Yeah, I think it's a win for us. We found some other things to talk about. I've gotten comments somewhere else about like, hey, the quarterback conversation's old. I'm over it. Blah blah blah. I mean, it's gonna be nonstop, wall to wall once training camp starts. So I get the fatigue. I get trying to talk about some other things, and that's why we're here. I do want to remind you to subscribe to the show, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Cleveland Browns on SI. Of course, the website, si.com/NFL/Browns is where you can find a bunch of our written content on this team. Even during the dog days of summer, we got you covered over there as well. So both great ways to follow along and keep in touch with us. But yeah, Megs, we got the big news. We had talked about it a little bit, I think, last week, that the state budget was officially approved. Mike DeWine signing off on it on Monday night. And so the $600 million the Browns were seeking to fund this project, or at least fund part of the project from the state, is going to be coming their way. And it pretty much closes the door on any of the conversations, negotiations, the war of words that went on. This now makes it official. The Browns will be playing their games in Brook Park in a dome stadium. We'll break ground in February. All those details. I guess I'm trying to kind of get a pulse though on whether or not we think like this was a celebratory day for fans, where it's like, hey, yeah, we're getting this awesome facility and climate controlled and a new era for Browns football, or if it was more of like a lamenting, I can't believe they're not going to be in downtown anymore. What is going on? What happened to my beloved Browns? I can't afford to go to these games now.
Yeah, it's weird. I kind of went on a little tangent in our last show about that. So I'm gonna take that. I'm not gonna go down that road again. But it just I don't know. I just find it so odd that people are like against this. Like, there's one cool thing about the current stadium, and that it's like that it's on the lakefront. Like, that's it. It is a pain in the butt to get to. There's no such thing. If you think that there's a home field advantage because of the weather, you're out of your mind. This team has been bad since they've been playing in the stadium. Like, nothing's been good about it. And the fact that people are still holding on to some kind of hope about like, hey, we want to be downtown. Well, guess what? You're going to have a state-of-the-art facility 15 minutes from downtown, and they're just going to call it Brownstown, and they're going to do a whole bunch of stuff around it to make that area a little bit cooler. I don't know. I couldn't be more in favor of this new stadium, and for like all of the reasons, but I just still can't wrap my head around people who think that this is a bad thing for Ohio and for the Cleveland Browns.
And here's the thing. Like, I do get the angle where it's like, it's a billionaire trying to build a stadium. They're going to reap the benefits of most of this. They're going to get a lot of the revenue. I think that's the hard thing people have trouble coming to grips with, is like, why are we giving tax dollars to a billionaire? Like, build your own stadium. And why are we supporting this thing that's just going to be like more money lying in the pockets of a billionaire? I can understand those conversations. I can understand those arguments. It's hard for us as common people, normal people, middle-class folks, a lot of us, to relate to that and feel sympathy or, want to side with it, whatever. So I get where that comes into play. We see this around city to city, but I think the thing that has really, stood out to me in this, well, there's a couple things. I think you hit the nail on the head with one, which is Northeast Ohio would never have a facility like this otherwise. It's a state-of-the-art building. It could, once it opens, it for at least a period of time, like, could be the best stadium in football.
Yes.
It could be this venue where it's like, oh man, this is awesome. So there's that going for it. And it's going to open up Cleveland to like so many other opportunities, which I think is huge. I think like part of the process that I got lost with was the politicians trying to make the Hasms out to be like these terrible, terrible villains, and like they're moving the team and all this stuff, when the plan was just like, we want to give this city the best facility that it can. Whether or not they're going to make a lot of money off of it or not, like aside, they are committed to building this great facility that Northeast Ohio wouldn't have otherwise. And it's like, it's an opportunity that I just don't know comes around very often. So I can, I can understand where people don't want to side with the billionaire and all that, but I also think like there is some truth to the idea that like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity of sorts, if you will. So yeah, I hope that people understand. I hope that people get on board with this. I think it almost is if you build it, they will come situation where people love this team. They're going to show up. But I know like today was kind of a mixed, it was kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? It's sort of like a mixed bag of emotions. Cause some people are like, this sucks, I didn't want this. And some people are like, yeah, this is exciting. But I also think I think there's also fatigue, frankly. Yeah, I think there's stadium talk fatigue with a lot of people because we've heard about this for like, several years now, and they just either want the facility to get built or not,
And I also think that, there's a couple things. The fatigue thing's funny. You say that because they've been showing the same video for like it feels like a year. I saw somebody, I think it was Reflog, like zoomed in on a couple pictures, and it was like Nick Chubb jerseys everywhere, and Nick Chubb was like the main character in the whole thing, like on the signs and all that stuff. And you're like, that something's not right with that. But like, dude, like. I'm going to a post from Brad Stainbrook. He obviously does a great job covering the Browns. But like this stadium not only is going to be state of the art from a football perspective and from an entertainment perspective, but like it's going to have some cool elements to it. It's the closest stadium that has the first and last row in the NFL. Like the seats are the closest together. It's going to have the largest fan wall in the NFL. That is like similar to what the Clippers have in their new stadium. It's going to have the largest locker rooms, the largest concourse, like all that stuff that we, dude, trying to get to a seat on game day, trying to get to the concession stand on game day, you just can't do it. You're going to miss you miss a whole half a quarter trying to do it. All of that stuff is going to kind of factor into this. And this is going to be the best facility in the NFL for 3, 4, 5 years, like you said.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot you unpack there. I think that's good. There's reasons to be excited about it. I think the fatigue is the biggest thing of why this conversation is kind of exhausting to people now, and they just want it to start. But yeah, some really cool features of this building that it's going to be state of the art. It's going to be impressive. And the hope is that people, embrace it once it's a thing and we kind of go from there. I do think there's, and the other thing I was going to say real quick, this is another part, like we talked about the fatigue thing. Jimmy Haslam is now doing like a 10-part podcast.
I saw
where they're going to like talk about details and different things. And so on one hand, I think that's going to add to the fatigue. On the other hand, I think it's a smart idea to like level with fans as much as possible. Make yourself relatable. Hey, here I am doing this podcast talking to you about the stadium and like why you should be excited about it. Like explain everything, dumb everything down for them. Be like, Here's why you should like this. We're going to have, a Handel's ice cream stand the size of, the size of
Beechwood Mall, dude.
Like whatever. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, like make it so that you give them every reason to embrace it. I think that's maybe a good thing. There's a funny conversation to be had about this where it's like, how many players on the team right now are actually going to be here when the stadium's built?
You posed this question to me, and I like. You got to think, right? 5 years, 2029, 4 years, 2029. So you're hoping that like this draft class, you have some players on it from, right? You're hoping Quinshon Judkins is on there. Like
Quinshon and Mason seems like Mason, if Mason's not here in 5 years, something went very, very wrong. Like he was a bust. He was another Joe Wills.
Who's going to be the quarterback? Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders or Cade?
That's an interesting question. Like, are either of these quarterbacks still here in 5 years? I don't know. I think we can safely say Joe Flacco won't be here.
I
don't think Kenny Pickett will be here. But
Miles,
will the rookies be here?
Miles plays 1 year in the new stadium.
Miles, that is, I think, the last year of his deal. So
Yeah.
if he's really now committed to the Cleveland to Canton thing, he theoretically would be here, but he also has to not get hurt, deteriorate, all those things. So like the only solid answers I think to this question are like, I think Miles is a possibility because of the nature of his contract. I think Mason Graham better be. If he doesn't get a second contract, like you screwed up, Andrew Berry.
Yeah.
Quinshon, hopefully, running backs. Sometimes Nick Chubb's career got derailed, so you never know. But you'd think Quinshon. You probably should think Carson Schlesinger.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guy that you're hoping gets a second contract too.
Yeah.
It's like 4 guys.
Yeah. Like you can like confidently say maybe Zach Zinter, maybe DeJuan Jones.
Maybe DeJuan Jones, if he becomes the tackle, like a left tackle of the future, that's a good answer.
Maybe that. Maybe no, none of your kickers are going to still be.
Maybe
here.
Mike Hall. Mike Hall going to be working there.
Yeah, right. Who's going to be the coach? Is it going to be
MJ Emerson? If MJ Emerson gets a second contract, he might be here.
That
could have a good season first.
So what are we at, 7?
Yeah, we're at like it's definitely under 10. And this is the funny, like, I really try not to ask. I think one of the stupidest questions that anybody and I'm not trying to call my media brethren here, but I think one of the stupidest questions that media members can ask these guys is like, what do you think? Like throughout this entire process, it's been like, what do you think about the possibility of playing in a dome? Or what do you think about the possibility of playing in Brook Park? And I've been like, guys, these players don't even know like if their career could end tomorrow. Look at JOK. Right. Look at JOK. Yeah. He had his whole career in front of him. He was a Pro Bowler. Like he was trying to go direction.
We put on
never play again.
Sharpie. Yeah.
Like these players are not thinking, where am I going to be in 5 years? Am I going to be playing in this dome in Brook Park where they could really have an opinion on it? Like they're so day to day, week to week, year to year. I just think it's a useless thing to ask. Like, I'm not going to go up to like Malik Collins this year on a 1-year deal and be like, hey, what'd you think about the decision to build a dome? Like, no, they don't care.
You're gonna shop in Brownstown. That's the other part is you talk about the fatigue thing and like we got to remember we're kicking the ball off in week 1 in Cleveland Brown State, they're in Huntington Bank Field as it's constructed now for the next 4 seasons. Right?
How do they send off a stadium that has just been like the epitome of losing?
So that's a good question because you think back to when
What's
they
the
left.
What's the most memorable moment from that stadium? Winning, beating the Steelers to clinch the playoffs with nobody there because it was during COVID.
No, Thursday night versus the Jets to get to the playoffs.
That's what about Thursday night when Baker Mayfield started?
Baker Thursday night opened the fridges. Is it just
the beer fridges? That might be it.
Thursday night against the Bengals when OBJ caught his first touchdown. It was like, here we go. Or not his first touchdown, but he caught a big touchdown. That was his final year.
I'm sure we're missing some, but
that's our next episode. That's what we need to talk about.
How do you send off a stadium that's only seen losing? I mean, we got 4 years to figure it out. But
okay, here's the real question.
Never hosted a playoff game.
Yeah. Well, there's 4 years left till they can host.
That's true. Maybe Kate Klubnik's going to take them there, or Archman.
Well, maybe, or Shador, maybe.
Or Drew Holler.
Or Drew Holler. Yeah.
Cleveland's own.
Yes. No, that's the crazy part to me is like we're gonna have this conversation now, and obviously this is a July topic, right? It's July 2nd, and so the topics maybe are bare, but that season's they're playing football in that stadium for the next 4 years. Do you think it will be? The question I was gonna ask you is like, you think back to '97 when they left and people were like tearing seats out. Like and doing that whole thing when that.
What do you have to hold on to those seats for? If you were a season ticket holder, I get it. I don't know. I've never thought the seat thing always was. I shouldn't say that because if it was like Fenway Park seats,
you would do it for Fenway.
But that's about the only place I would do it. Like that's also. But here's the thing: Fenway is like a cathedral of sports stadiums. Like is the Brown Stadium that they built very hastily to get the team back in 1999 and has seen nothing but losing. Like, is that really something that like deserves you want to keep the seats for?
According to my Twitter timeline, it's the Taj Mahal.
That's what your Twitter timeline says.
Allegedly, that's what the people are telling me.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Them and
this stadium's immaculate. Don't change a thing. Keep it the same.
One tweet is that, the other is that Ty Jerome was prime LeBron James. Like those are the two things going on my timeline.
Well, it's that, and then it's Sophie Cunningham ripping on
Cleveland. Well, okay, so I was trying to figure out a way to bring that up. This is perfect time for it because apparently Cleveland, nobody wants to be in Cleveland. So there you go. There you go.
Well, now they're going to be in Brook Park instead.
Yeah.
And honestly, people should be happy about this because if you hate Cleveland as much as Sophie Cunningham does, you can fly to the airport, walk across the street, go to the stadium, catch a game, and then you just have to go to the airport and go back. You don't even have to go downtown. You don't have to explore Cleveland. You can literally just get a sense of like the airport and the stadium, and that's it. That's all your Cleveland experience needs to be.
Sophie, you thought downtown Cleveland was bad? I raised you Brook Park, baby.
Hey, it's going to be Brownstown soon.
Come on down.
It's going to be a nice place to hang out is the hope. We talked about not exhausting it, and then we spent 15 minutes on it. So I think we've exhausted this enough for now. Obviously, the stadium will continue to be a thing. But and from more of a on the field standpoint, a roster standpoint with this team, training camp just around the corner. We've hit July, which means the countdown is really on. We have
weeks.
It's July 2nd that this episode debuts, and so that means we have like 21. I have 21 days. I have 3 weeks until I'm back in Berea, saddling up for days and days of hot training camp practices. So we're looking forward to it though to be fun. But I've thought more and more about this, Megs, and I know like this came up on our radar a little bit last week because Sam Monson, formerly a PFF, now he works at the 33rd team. He still does a podcast with Steve Palazzolo. They were giving out like grades for every team's like Offseason, and the Browns came up, and Sam Monson basically like ripped the grade that they were given and thought it was an egregiously bad score because he thinks the Browns actually had an offseason, and he used the word underrated. And what's interesting is before Sam Monson said this, I had my own thoughts and takes on, I think the Browns actually did a pretty good job, all things considered, this offseason with the resources they had through the draft, whatever. And so I thought it was cool that like a national guy was sort of co-signing a take like that and had similar thoughts. Have we maybe underestimated or not talked enough about the offseason that this team has had, the pieces that they added, even in the margins, and maybe are we underselling this roster because of it? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that the two faces on this show have undersold it. Like I do think that, this is in my opinion, it's been just a foundational offseason, right? There's been no flash, right? And the perfect example is, hey, you have Travis Hunter, who you could take, generational player that your team is not ready for. Your team is not ready for it. He would be a total waste of it would be a waste of talent in Cleveland, Ohio. And instead you get a draft pick, potentially top 10 pick next year, and you take a blue chip guy on the defensive line. Like that is the type of move that they made, and it's consistent throughout. They didn't reach for anything. They didn't overpay. They've been known to take swings. Obviously the Deshaun stuff, but that also hamstrings you. And what they've done is set themselves up for it. You basically had to thread a needle, and they did it to set yourself up for short-term success and long-term longevity of these guys. Like there's going to be a lot of these guys that they can renew and keep on this team because of their contract situations. Like I think, and if you've watched the show consistently, I've gotten a little bit better about taking my brown and orange glasses off. But I do think that this has been a pretty successful offseason for them, and they got to be, if I'm in that building, I'm pretty damn excited, and looking at the prospect of, hey, I'm not saying you're going to win a Super Bowl next year, but I think this is going to be a competitive group.
Yeah, listen, I'm curious. Competitiveness is TBD. Like how successful they really are as a unit is going to be something we have to sort of see in real time once the season starts. But the idea that like I think a lot of, I don't even know if it's been criticisms per se, but part of the reason people aren't maybe talking about this offseason enough when it comes to the Browns is because I just think they are being defined by what happened last year. They are being defined by, hey, you won 3 games last year, and listen, I get it. If you go 3-14, you deserve all the hate and the doubt that you're going to get. Nobody's going to believe in you when you're coming off of a 3-win season. And so I recognize that. I'm not saying that I'm not calling people out like you're going to be wrong about this Browns team. Like they still might not win a lot of games. So I get that. But I do think like if you're looking at the the moves they made this offseason, understanding the situation they were in. Yes, you're right. They are trying to sort of thread that needle of staying competitive while also trying to win, or staying competitive while also looking ahead to the future. I think they did a pretty good job of that. But like, you just go like move by move here. The Malik Collins signing, I think, is one of the best signings this entire offseason in general, like around the NFL. Underrated move, guy who was top 10 in pass rush win rate last year. He's a guy that can get pressure from the interior. I really like that move. I think it made their defensive line better than it did when it had the Dalvin Tomlinson. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, former first-round pick, a lot of talent there. Guy that I think showed some nice things in mini camp and OTAs with the second unit, especially where he can kind of get after it. So I think there's some there should be some reason to be maybe excited there. I also think, I just think they made smart moves with the money that they did have at their disposal to sort of bolster some position groups. I think the linebacker group, bringing in a guy like Jerome Baker, I think that group is deeper than we're maybe even talking about or giving credit for, and that's something we can talk about more in depth later at another time. But yeah, like I think they address certain things that I think are valuable, and then you go to the draft, and it's like, okay, listen, was it unconventional how you got there? Yeah, like the two quarterbacks, all these different things. Yes, but you took two bites at the apple there, which is never a bad idea. You got two running backs and basically like remade your running back room in one off season, and you feel really good about Quinshawn. You got a linebacker that maybe can be JOK-esque and, fill that void. You got a defensive tackle who's a number 5 overall pick that can maybe become something really special for you. Like they made a lot of moves that were smart. Did they forget some things? Of course. Like they didn't take a tackle. They didn't draft a wide receiver. I get that. It was in a perfect offseason, but I do think like people just saw them take Dylan Gabriel at 94, and they saw a team that won 3 games last year, and they said like, this same old Browns, like they're making stupid decisions, but I actually think Andrew Berry made a lot of smart moves and moves that make sense for this team where they're currently at.
And even in the draft, you look at it, the young talent they have, and you just go position by position. You kind of talked about it, but I think of it. I'm looking at a whiteboard, right? You have a interior defensive lineman who has the potential to be your a cornerstone piece in that group for years to come. You draft a linebacker who has a potential to be the cornerstone piece. You didn't address anything in the secondary, but you have Grant Delpit still back there. The one that's going to be a head scratcher for me is the Dylan Gabriel over Xavier Watts pick. Like that one's going to be one because you could have drafted a safety and have for a long-term solution there. Then you go on the offensive side of the ball. You might find your solution at quarterback, like you said, two picks or 2 bites at the apple there. You definitely have a solution at running back. You have a new tight end who's potentially a long-term tight end fit. You got young offensive line, like not a young total offensive line, but with Zinter and DeJuan Jones, you have the potential there to have some young pieces. And those are like, this isn't like, hey, in the 7th round, we took Anthony Moeglin and he's supposed to be our quarterback of the future. No, you took actual quality guys who could go out there and be players for you, impact players for you. Maybe not so much next year, but in year 2, 3, and 4, you can really continue to build this foundation of this team.
Well, and even other contexts like Shedeur Sanders, if everyone says he was supposed to be at least a day 2 pick, the value you get on him now as a 5th round pick is like off the charts. And yeah, you traded back. You could argue maybe they should have taken Travis Hunter if you really want to. But getting another first for next year, like if they're trying to rebuild this team quickly, that all matters, right? Like you got a second number 1 or a second 1st round pick for next year now. Like that stuff that's another move that like it doesn't maybe impact you right now, but if you're talking about like the sum of its parts as an offseason, those are also impactful moves that help the near future and the long-term future of this team. And so again, it all just adds into this bucket where it's like, yeah, I think they made a lot of smart moves. They did the best they could with the resources they have. And I don't know that people have talked enough about that.
And Jerm Munson was talking about that. You mentioned him was kind of stemming off that conversation and just talking about like, hey, if you do, like he said, if it was in a perfect or in his world, he would have taken Shedeur at number 2. So you get him in the 5th round. Let's just say that Shedeur's the answer. Let's say you figure it out and you win 7 games next year, and the Browns pick is, let's say, 14, and the Jaguars win 6 games and they have the 10th pick. Guess what? There's your wide receiver. There's your left tackle. Bang, you got them both right there. Boom, for the future. You know what I mean? Or there's a trade there to be had. Or if none of those guys can make it happen, you have a top 3 pick. You're picking a quarterback. So it's like, yes, I do. In the moment, I certainly was like, yo, what are the Browns doing? Like, this has got to be a mistake. But then when you're able to kind of clear the glasses a little bit, let the dust settle, yeah, that was a smart move. There were smart moves all over the draft. There's smart moves in free agency, and they're doing it in the scope of, hey, you're strapped for cash. This contract, you're almost out of the gray cloud that is this contract, this Deshaun Watson contract, and you're able to navigate through it to make yourself to give yourself potential when you do work your way out of it. I do think underrated is the right way to classify this offseason.
Well, we didn't even mention the thing that Sam Monson started with, which was, your offseason began with Myles Garrett requesting a trade, and then you managed to keep him.
Yeah.
And so that's another pivotal part of this is like, I mean, whether you believe he's bought in or you think it's like, contrived or whatever, or you like the way he went about it, you still did keep that guy. And that's one of the best players in the NFL without question. So yeah, listen, I think it's a good way to sort of classify it. I think the underrated is the right word. I liked what Sam had to say, but I thought it was worth bringing here because I think people aren't probably talking about this team enough because they're just counting out the Browns. But I do think they've made some good and smart moves this offseason. Speaking of Myles Garrett did come back, but the Steelers are dealing with a defensive end contract situation of their own that doesn't seem like it's going well at the moment. TJ Watt didn't show up to minicamp. He wants a new contract. Steelers, he's trying to milk every penny he can out of the Steelers, and rightfully so. He should do that. But that's not all that's going on in Pittsburgh because on Monday, they also made a pretty stunning trade as they acquired Jalen Ramsey from the Dolphins and Jonnu Smith, gave up, I think it was like a 6th-round pick or something like that, 5th-round pick, and Minkah Fitzpatrick in the deal. So at first I was like, oh, wow, like this is a pretty good move for them if they're adding Jalen Ramsey to a secondary that has like Minkah in it and all this. And then you realize that they gave up Minkah and it was like, oh, so that's not as good. And then you really realize that the reason they gave up Minkah is because guess who's waiting on the depth chart behind him? The guy they signed this offseason, Juan Thornhill. So they're putting a lot of trust in – that laugh says it all, Megs. They're putting a lot of trust in Juan Thornhill to be a starter. And I think like this is supposed to be a sort of an all-in move for the Steelers. Like, hey, we're really going for it this year. We got Aaron Rodgers. But anytime they add any big-name player, unless it was like they made a blockbuster trade for like Josh Allen or something like that, which would never happen. Like, anytime they add a big-name player, I just still picture the same thing happening for the Steelers. 10-7 season, bounce in the first round. Like, so even though they get Jalen Ramsey, it's like there's some shock value there. Oh, they got Jalen Ramsey. But then you're like, they're still just going to finish the same way they always finish. They're going to be a playoff team and then get bounced in the first round.
Germ, I was texting some friends, like this Steelers team would have been elite in 2015, like, or 2017. Like, it's an old group, dude. The average age is like 32 and a half or whatever. And the Minkah trade. Okay, so I got to step back because I did call them an old group. I had a tough realization today when they were talking. I think I was talking about on Cleveland Browns Daily or whatever show I was listening to. But it's felt like Minkah Fitzpatrick's been in the league for forever, and in my mind, he's a dinosaur in the NFL, and we're the same age. That was a tough realization for me.
Yeah, that's always tough.
Dude, brutal. 28. But like you trade him and you get Jalen Ramsey back, who was drafted in 2016, and is in his 30s now. Aaron Rodgers is like, he had a good year last year, stats wise, but still definitely, on the 18th hole of his career, he said that. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Jonnu Smith, I think, is really good. They're going to have a good running back. They're going to have good running backs, but I think you're spot on. It's like, it feels like they're taking some big swings, which is not Steelers-like. This offseason is not what the Steelers typically do. But they're taking some big swings, and everyone's talking Super Bowl, and I don't know. I don't see them as a Super Bowl contender. I don't see them as the second best team in the AFC North. Like, it is, I don't think either of those moves leapfrog them over the Cincinnati Bengals. I certainly don't see it that way. Interesting stuff going on in Pittsburgh, but you can't hardly fault them for trying to push all the chips in while they got number 8 calling the shots back behind center.
Well, and listen, the TJ Watt thing is part of the backdrop of this, though, because you could say they're going for it, but they also kind of need TJ Watt to be part of that group to really feel like they're going for it. They have a chance, and so how that gets resolved is going to be fascinating because the Steelers don't normally just budge on this type of stuff. They don't normally just pay guys exuberant amount of money. There's not so I don't know. That's all fascinating. It feels a lot like Trouble in Paradise or hey, welcome to that. They're in quarterback purgatory, and they have been since Rothenberg.
And as long as they keep going 10-7, you're going to stay. That's the name of the game.
They're never going to get out of it.
No.
In some ways, if TJ Watt is unhappy, there's a case to be made. Why not just trade him and start embracing the fact that you can maybe get draft capital and start to actually. But they'll never do that. They will quite literally never accept being mediocre, being bad, bottoming out. That's just not how the Steelers do things. So, and I respect that. I respect it they are to some degree, a staple gold standard organization in the sport where it's they just don't lose. And Mike Tomlin's a hell of a coach. But they're in a weird spot and we'll see if they can get the TJ Watt stuff resolved. Miles sort of plays a role in that because Miles getting paid means that the next defensive end gets paid. And so there's a certain amount of money he's going to want that Miles didn't get or whatever. So
it feels like there's a game of chicken between Trey Hendrickson and TJ Watt. Who's going to be the first one to get the Miles money because they both have an argument to be getting paid that amount of money because of their production.
Yeah, they've been great. Yeah.
And I will say this: I did laugh at the Juan Thornhill comment. There's a chance he sees all of this, so apologies for. I
don't care if he sees it. All I said is they put a lot of faith in Thornhill.
I'm not by you. I laughed.
Well, listen, they're putting a lot of faith in Juan Thornhill. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. I mean, just go back and watch the tape, and you'll know what we're talking about there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Steelers. And the Steelers are always, it seems like, at an interesting crossroads, and then they always just swerve into being just good enough that they remain in quarterback purgatory. But for some reason, they think Aaron Rodgers is their lottery ticket at the age of 40 and that this is the year to go for it. Because, like I said, this did feel like an all-in move. I don't know. But you lose Minka. We'll see. I didn't fully get the swap.
No, it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Minka's good. Jalen's good. Is Jalen as good as he used to be? No.
But they played two separate. It's not like you went Denzel Ward for Jalen Ramsey.
I think Jalen Ramsey can play both. He can play safety. He can play nickel. He can do everything. So maybe that's what they valued here. But I mean, I don't know. I can't get over them leaning into well, hey, we'd rather have Jalen Ramsey and we'll just lean on Juan Thornhill. I just can't look past it.
Hey, one of the other names they brought in is Darius Slay. I forgot that they brought him.
They do have Darius Slay. That is right.
They do have Darius Slay now. So now your cornerback room is all over the age of 30, which is just interesting.
Except for Joey Porter Jr.
And then little stud, the young buck in that room. I don't know. Interesting moves, man. Here's a question for you.
I think the Steelers are just I think they have a false pretense of who they are.
Yes.
I think they think they're ahead of the curve on this stuff. I think they don't think they're in quarterback purgatory and they're well, we can win with anybody, but they're the first step towards change is acceptance. And they have to accept that at some point, they can't just keep doing this. They're never going to find their true heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger.
No, none.
What's your question?
Here's the question. So you go back, I forget the year. I think it was 2011. Is that when Rodgers won the Super Bowl? Was that his Super Bowl against Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Would you find it really hard put yourself in, let's say, Boston Red Sox territory where your fandom shines through? Would you find it hard to root for, in that case, the ace pitcher that beat you in the World Series? In this case, the quarterback that beat you, now 14 years ago in the Super Bowl. Is that something you would?
Not if he just went to another team that won the World Series. He went
to your team.
Oh,
Rodgers
I got you.
Rodgers beat the Steelers, and now he's the Steelers quarterback.
No, I don't think it. I don't think it's if I don't think that's as bad. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. I live in I have the luxury of never having seen the Red Sox lose when they get to the World Series in my life.
Ah,
So
there you go.
that's not a problem for me. So sorry.
That's like me rooting for Anthony Rizzo and for the Guardians.
Hey, I mean yeah, that's a good example actually. It's like Rizzo beats you and then he comes to Cleveland and it's like, how do you root for him? I don't know. I think once he's on your team, you sort of deal with it, but I think it'd be different. Maybe the best example would be if Kyle Schwarber came to the Guardians. Like because he was the player that everybody hated the most that series because
remember he came out he had a torn
ACL over Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, he had a torn ACL, and then he was like, all right, I'm good enough to swing it. And he hit like 3 home runs. You're like, geez, oh, man.
Kyle Schwarber would be the one that would be hard, I think.
Time heals all wounds, but I'm not that hasn't been 10 years since that happened. So
the only example that
I'm not taking Schwarber.
I'm talking more. I was thinking more so like a guy who played for the Red Sox that then goes to play for the Yankees. And yeah, if you do that, I swear you off. Johnny Damon, hate him. Sorry, Johnny. Sorry, Johnny. You want to work? You were part of 04, and I'll always remember that. But you went to the Yankees after that, and I can't stand for that. Nope, not gonna happen. Wow. It also kind of depends on the person, because like Jacoby Ellsbury went to the Yankees, but he didn't win anything. So it's like, I don't really have a problem with him. I think it's the fact that Johnny Damon actually won another one, and he won it with the Yankees that gets in my craw. Can't have that. Can't have that. It's also because Johnny Damon took a page out in the paper. Now we've gone completely off the rails, and he said like, I love Boston. I don't ever want to leave. And then he left. So it was like,
but he left. I've totally memory hold that. I didn't know. Doesn't even register in my brain. Johnny Damon winning a World Series with the Yankees. That is
last World Series the Yankees won. But
I will say if Schwarber was batting for the Guardians, the Cleveland baseball team, at this point, I would have to boo him. I'm not over it yet. Time heals. You've
been watching that team play offense the last couple of weeks. You would not be booing Kyle Schwarber.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. But now we've become Cleveland Guardians on our side.
Anyway. I don't think it's all that difficult to cheer for somebody once they come to your team, but that's just me. I don't know. I think it is what it is. I don't know what Rodgers has left. That's the big question. Like they seem to think I think it'd be silly to like write him off entirely because I think he did show at the end of the season last year there's still something there. But also like the guy who was talking to the McAfee show about this being his last season didn't really sound like somebody who's highly motivated. He was like, yeah, I'm excited to have some fun and play for a coach that I've never had a chance to work with, but he's great. And it's like, so the goal is just to have fun. Like that's what you're here for.
That ain't gonna fly.
Like I said, Steelers add somebody notable. I just assume, okay, they're going to be 10-7 and lose in the first round of the playoffs. So, fun one to sort of get us out of here. I think there's a number of directions we can go with this, but along the lines of having an underrated roster that maybe is not talked about enough. I think there are a number of players on this roster that haven't necessarily gotten the attention that they deserve in terms of how impactful they could be this year. And so I thought it'd be fun to maybe go around and talk about some guys that we're maybe not talking about enough and deserve some love.
My first one. This is a guy I'm excited about. Jamari Thrash, wide receiver, coming into year 2, allegedly. According to report. Why? Is that some sarcasm there?
I don't know. I have very low expectations for Jamari Thrash.
Jamari Thrash. Jamari Thrash because I haven't seen him in person, but allegedly he put on some good weight. He wears number 80. Maybe he reminds me a little bit of Jarvis Landry. But that is a guy who's just doing some reading over the past couple of days that some folks around town have been excited about seeing. So he's going to have an opportunity, right? We talked about the receivers quite a bit in our last show. And if there is a spot, if Deontay Johnson doesn't work out as that wide receiver number 3, potentially a chance for Thrash to plug in there.
He was taking a lot of first team reps, so at the slot. So I mean, it's possible. I will say this: it seems like he's tried to work on like catching the ball better because he had a lot of drops in practice last year. So that's good news.
Or I just don't know when you're in the NFL and you're trying to work on catching the ball better.
Yeah, that's true too. But I mean, he is like a 5th round pick. So what do you expect? My first answer is going to be Malik Collins. I talked about him earlier. I don't know if people realize how good this dude is. Like, he flies under the radar. He's not defensive tackles aren't sexy. Like, it's not the defensive ends. It's not the pass rushers, right? But he is a guy that can get after the passer on the inside. And I just think he's a really good player. And we spent so much time talking about Mason Graham and Miles and Denzel. He flies completely under the radar. But I still attest that that's one of the sneaky best moves of this offseason free agency for the Browns, and I'm excited to see what Malik Collins brings to the table. So that's gonna be my first answer.
Yeah, that's I think that's going to be a good one. That defensive line is going to be sweet. The other guy that I not a player that would it's Jack Conklin for me. It's not something that's not like a shocking pick. It's just somebody who just haven't really talked about much, and what I'm really excited to see.
Answer.
Yeah, coming back from injury, right? Like, and back into a scheme that fit him super well. Like, he came here to do what Kevin Stefanski does well and block that outside zone and get vertical, and then also pass protect his butt off when needed off of play action. Like, I'm excited to see how he responds along with some of those older guys on that offensive line, Wyatt and Joel, because it's back to what they know, back to what they're good at, and certainly excited to see what he brings to the table. More importantly, coming off the injury from last year.
I'm gonna say MJ Emerson as my next one. I think people just kind of write him off at this point. Like, I think they just kind of assume, this guy sucks because he had a bad year last year. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Like, he had a really good year second year, had a down year last year. And if the truth is somewhere in the middle, like, that's a pretty solid, really good corner that you can have on this team moving forward. So we probably haven't talked about him enough. But I like the idea of MJ putting up some better numbers this year, bouncing back. And I think if he does, like, you're right back in the conversation of like, all right, when Denzel maybe has to fade out, you have MJ sort of fading in, if you will. So I'm interested to see what type of season MJ Emerson has.
Are we doing three?
Three's fine. Yeah, I think
three's fine. All right, my last one, Ronnie Hickman, safety. I'm excited.
I was thinking about him.
Gotcha. We were going defense. I put you on the spot here. You were the defensive guy, so I had to get on the other side of the ball. Ronnie Hickman, to me, he's going to have a huge role next year, right? You lose Juan Thornhill, and that basically was like, hey, we're going to put a lot of stock in you next year. Obviously had that great rookie season in 23, a little bit more down last year, fight off an injury as well. So excited to see what he brings to the table. Those Buckeyes seem to, every time they get into the league and every time they get an opportunity, they seem to make the most of it. So really looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the table in year 3, because I always just think back to that stretch of football he was playing towards the end of 23, and it's like, that could be a guy that you kind of build a defense around alongside a guy like Grant Delpit in the back end there. I'm
going on offense for my last one. I'm going to say Dylan Sampson.
Oh,
he is the forgotten rookie.
He is.
Hey, Mason Graham's the 5th overall pick. It's Carson Schlesinger. He better be JOK. It's the 2 quarterbacks. Of course, we talk a ton about them. It's the 2. It's Quinshawn Judkins. It's Harold Fannin being a potential weapon for this offense, and we just kind of don't talk about Dylan Sampson. But it's important to remember, like, their goal with Sampson is Quinshawn's your lead back, Sampson's your third down guy, catching passes. They have different skill sets. It's going to be sort of this dynamic duo. I'll even take it one step further. Like, I don't know that I'd rather see the 2 rookies, but I think Jerome Ford's going to probably find a role for himself, because I think the last couple of years he's proven like he can be a reliable weapon for you in some respects. He can catch passes out of the backfield himself as well. So, but I think we haven't talked enough probably about Dylan Sampson, the role that he's going to play in this offense. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with the one rookie that gets talked about at the very least, which is Dylan Sampson.
I love that pick. Hey, that's he was a beast last year. I don't know. That kind of gets.
He won SEC Offensive Player of the Year.
He had like 22 touchdowns.
That's absurd.
He was sick, and he just didn't play against Ohio State. So, like, everyone who's watching this show, if you're a Buckeyes fan, you're like, oh, this guy just didn't play. Go back and watch some of his games. He's a freak.
He was scared.
Yeah,
he was scared.
Scared. He was cold. Was he cold?
I mean, those fans they drove all the way up there just to see their team get their ass whooped. But anyway, that feels like a good place to stop, I should say. By the way, I don't actually think Dylan Sampson was scared. I understand what was going on there. But anyway, you know who was scared? Nico Iamaleava. That's why he left. He was like, I don't want to play Ohio State again. I'll go to. Well, he went to a place where he could play Ohio State again. So that's.
Well, he's playing Ohio State.
He plays Ohio State. You know what? It just hit me.
You're going to that game.
We're going to that game this year. Yeah. Get to see Nico Iamaleava back at the shoe. Okay. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out. Appreciate you guys stopping by with the Cleveland Browns on SI. As always, we encourage you to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so already, we have lots of content like this. We're going to keep it rolling throughout the offseason. I will be out of town here for a little bit, but when I get back, we'll certainly have more stuff for you. And then, frankly, we're really only going to be like 2 weeks out from training camp at that point. So then it'll really be coming at you hot and heavy. We'll have press conferences pretty much every day. We'll have lots of, podcast stuff like this. It'll be a really good time. So if you're not subscribed already, please do. As always, be sure to head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns as well. All sorts of written content over there with your favorite football team as well. And players in general and all this different stuff. So I'm working on a feature on Alex Wright and him sort of battling out for this competition at the defensive end spot opposite of Miles. So always some good stuff going on with Browns on SI. And like I said, this channel, we're continuing to grow, and we need more support from people like you. So we hope that you'll subscribe if you haven't done so. And we'll be back next week with more enlightening topics. It might go off the rails again because there's not a lot to talk about right now, but we always have fun. Thanks for stopping by. Keep on following along, as always, with all things Cleveland Browns, with the Cleveland Browns on SI.